To start, we had you test some pizza. And so we're going to talk a little about that. Let's have some fun here, you know, because what I'm going to do is try to take you through kind of an evolving what's happened over the last, say, 7 years, okay, with our pizza program. All right, and I have to be honest with you. A is actually C, so the little pizza that you were eating that you tested was actually C. So this is C. And what I would tell you is that I was shocked because this was always the favorite pizza of the kids, okay? It has higher calories, higher fat, and high sodium, okay? And so in the taste test that we did with our little iTouches, 6 of you out of 20 said that they didn't like it, okay? It was their least favorite, all right? B, I threw B in the middle because this is the new and up-and-coming pizza that meets all of the new regulations that USDA has set forth. Calories is 350 calories, 14 grams. It's a little, it's low on the fat side, and that's a little bit high on the sodium. But one of the things, and as I was talking, 7 of you said that was their least favorite. Any comments that you'd like to make about you know, that pizza itself?
I agree with that last statement.
Yeah. Okay.
You could tell it tasted different.
Yeah.
Yes, and let me tell you some comments that came to me, you know, just for some other staff, is that it had a chemical taste to it. What they're trying to do is they're trying to mask the fact that it has no sodium in it, so they put additional spices in that sometimes don't always translate into a pizza flavor and that kind of thing. So we did it. But now I'm going to give you the C pizza. This is the one that we presently serve. Okay, 390 calories. It doesn't. You know, we're doing our best to try to meet the conditions of what, you know, USDA is setting forth. But we feed 23,000 slices of this every Thursday, and the kids absolutely love it. Now, Chef Jason, our executive chef, and you've met him, and I'm sure you've indulged in some of the great meals that he puts forward, but he has created some awesome you know, variations on this cheese pizza and that kind of thing. And so we're very proud of this. And I guess that, well, I'm going to go back one. Also, I want to point out to you that the pizza that's coming out to be able to meet that, it's part skim mozzarella with modified food starch. That's the cheese. So in other words, we're going to call it fake cheese. All right? We're not in Douglas County, as long as I'm the director, going to be serving our kids fake cheese. And that's just, it's a plus, that we're going to just continue to maintain those standards. Tonight, I don't want to just do a presentation. I want to have a discussion. So there's going to be some technical things. We move across things, and you might have some questions. Speak up. Let's talk. And stop me, and we can stop and talk about things. I think we've got the time, and I'll speak briefly. I want to first talk to you about a brief history of Douglas County School nutrition and what we've done as it relates to the school lunch program. We're ahead of the game. We always have been ahead of the game. And number 2 is that in every 5 years, USDA or the Congress reauthorizes the school lunch program. That's a mandate from 1940 when they first started the National School Lunch Program. So this has to get reauthorized. Interestingly, in 2010, that was quite a big deal because all of a sudden regulations started to really hit home, and they started really coming down on the regulations for a good reason, I think, and I support that. Third is the details about the smart snack regulations. That may not mean anything, but I'll get into that because that is really the crux of what we want to talk about tonight, is that smart snacks as it relates especially to the high schools. And then we have a recommendation we'd like to move forward with. Okay, and to start this, if I can get this video to work.
The food fight sweeping school cafeterias nationwide. It's only been a month since new federal guidelines mandating healthy school lunches went into effect, but many students are already finding them hard to swallow. With cafeteria fare now calorie restricted, some kids are complaining that their lunch doesn't fill them up and turning to YouTube to make their voices heard. Here's ABC's Jim Avila.
You need a fruit or vegetable, sweetie pie?
It's a noble effort.
But an ABC News investigation shows the USDA's new school lunch guidelines are not going down so well with many kids across the country. America's public school students protesting the new federal war on child obesity with guidelines promoting smaller portions, fewer calories, less meat and cheese, and more fruits and vegetables, all aimed to control obesity, which kills more Americans than any cancer. Some of the protests hit the internet in dramatic fashion, like this lunchroom revolt.
Give me some seconds, I need to get some food today. My friends are at the corner store getting junk so they don't waste away.
Students at this Kansas high school creating a viral video protesting the new calorie-cutting menus in their cafeteria. The new rules limit elementary schoolers to 650 calories, 700 calories for middle schoolers, and 850 for high schoolers.
It's roughly the same amount of calories, but it's a different mix of how you get to those calories, and we think it's based on the science is a more nutritious mix.
But the result of all that healthy food, say many parents and kids, is a dramatic increase in plate waste.
Sometimes the food is just nasty.
In fact, the only known study of food waste under the new guidelines contains a startling statistic. Kids are now throwing away twice as much food as last year.
If you just plop the vegetables and plop the fruit there and don't do anything else, waste goes up. Waste goes up about 97%.
We visited a school in suburban Chicago just this month where middle schoolers analyzed their lunch waste and were shocked to find 46 boxes of unopened pears.
They're all unopened, totally unopened.
The week before, all 111 vegetable containers served were thrown away.
Schools tell us that they're seeing a 50% increase in the amount of lunchroom trash.
It's just too healthy almost.
I try my hardest, but it's just not working.
Angie Reynolds at Virginia's Holston High School says kids are bringing their own and only take the fruits and vegetables when she forces them. They complain the food is tasteless.
A lot of it is going in the trash.
The secret ingredient, perhaps missed most by the students and even the lunch ladies, is so secret it's hidden way back here in the supply room behind a locked door and underneath one of the boxes. That ingredient? Salt. The new school lunch rules place limits on salt, ketchup, and sugar, flavors kids crave.
The first rule of food is that nobody's going to get any nutrition out of it if you don't eat it. The trash can does nothing for you nutritionally.
But the USDA says it's working in some schools.
We're seeing elementary school children probably more receptive to this than high school students, which is understandable because high school students have gone through perhaps 10 or 12 years of schools with a different sort of formula.
And that Cornell study finds there are creative ways to cut down on plate waste, that by moving the healthy choices to the front of the buffet and making up names for vegetables like power beans or X-ray vision carrots, plate waste will drop dramatically.
That's what makes all the difference in whether it's eaten or thrown out.
Oh, they love salad.
Moves that could help the modern-day lunch lady cut down on plate waste and America's kids cut down on childhood obesity. For Nightline, I'm Jim Avila in Bristol, Virginia.
Yum. That introduces kind of what the dilemma is, I think, and it kind of brings it all kind of into a nutshell. So what I want to do is I want to go back prior to 2010. The lunch program in the National School Lunch Program was pretty simple. We had to offer 5 different food groups, and the kids had to take 3 of those. The regulations were such that really all we had to do was feed 2 ounces of meat or meat alternate, 8 ounces of milk, a 1/4 cup fruit. Didn't have to be fresh, it could be canned. Same with the vegetable, 1/4 cup vegetable, and then 1 ounce of bread. No specification what kind of bread or anything like that. 2010, when they reauthorized the program, then they started to put regulations onto that. When I started as the director in 2007, I was given the responsibility as the director to change the way this district looked at school lunch, okay? Prior to my coming here, I had been a director in Jeffco and several different school districts here in Colorado for about 10 years. And this district had a reputation of being the a la carte kings of Colorado. And this is no lie, because I stayed one night till 9 o'clock. I added up all the receipts for the prior year to me being here. We spent over $3 million on Little Debbie's snack foods and sold those at a very healthy profit. We were very well off as far as finances were concerned, but we really weren't doing anything as far as the nutrition is concerned. So we first set out to develop a wellness policy, and our local wellness policy addresses nutrition standards as it relates to the lunch program. And that was the first thing that we did as a wellness policy group. We've always, and since that time, we've been leaders in this industry. An example of that is we came out and we said no to high fructose corn syrup in chocolate milk. We need to lower from 29 grams down to 23 grams the sugar amount that is in that. It's just, and the milk industry here in Colorado listened to us. We were leaders in that, so as an example. But the one thing that we tried to do that I think is really important that we're losing sight of with these new regulations is that we tried to develop these nutrition standards. We tried to balance that with what I call palatability, okay? So we got to have the kids eating those foods, and you got to balance that. It's a fine-tooth thing. But we also wanted to be able to integrate nutrition education, especially in the younger kids, because you got to teach those kids. It will be the greatest joy of my life when I retire to see high schools making good, healthy choices because I did something as an elementary kid. That will be a great experience for me. All right. So kind of we reduced fat, we reduced sugar, we got into the whole grains, we started to put whole wheat in our bread. We increased the quality of our meats. And it may not come across right, but we went to whole muscle. How many of you remember Jamie Oliver when he came on TV? And he taught us how chicken nuggets were made in school lunch. I'll never be so proud of the fact that next morning when I received millions of phone calls from moms in this district saying, do we do that like Jamie Oliver said? And I says, absolutely not. We use whole muscle chicken, okay? And I was very proud of that day, okay? Clean label ground beef. And one of the things I want to emphasize is fresh fruits and vegetables. That was something that we spent a great deal of time, effort, and money. We have a way to receive fresh fruits and vegetables. We distribute it out to the schools on a regular basis. Our goal was to have 95% fresh fruits and vegetables. I knew, and I've known all along, that kids will be more accepting of fresh fruits and vegetables than they will canned or processed type foods, okay? And we really tried to go to the fresh or from scratch, using local and those kinds of things. Then along in 2010 came the Healthy Hungry Free Kids Act of 2010. All right? It has 3 implementation phases. The first was the reimbursable meals that they started to implement in July 12. Well, we'd already been doing this since 2007, so this was a no-brainer to this district. We were there. We were one of the first districts to certify in Colorado to be able to certify that we actually did follow those rules. And then next year, in July 2013, so the school breakfast program regulations went into effect. Now, we only have 4 schools that actually serve breakfast. This district, the makeup of this district doesn't really warrant parents supporting, and we've surveyed parents, we've talked to parents, we've really beat that one to death almost, but the parents aren't really interested in having a breakfast program where you'll see something like that in Denver Public Schools. Then this year, 2 weeks ago, the a la carte and school competitive foods, and remember we talked about smart snack regulations, have now gone into effect. And this caused me some stir because one of the things that's prevalent, especially in our high schools, is that most of the foods that we sell are a la carte foods, okay? Now, we're still committed to health, and we still serve healthy type products and stuff, but these regulations really did take it to us. And we had to do a lot of evaluation since Christmas. For all of our meals, they started the sodium regulations, and we'll kind of go through that in just a sec. The Smart Snack regulations provides the USDA, Congress gave USDA the authority to establish nutrition standards. So it's not just 2 ounces of meat, but the 2 ounces of meat have to be a certain type of meat or has to be a certain protein level and those types of things, okay? And so nutrition standards for all competitive foods and beverages sold. That's outside the school lunch program, okay? Now, in your mind, you may be thinking, what does that mean, you know, kind of thing, but there's a lot of food activity outside the school lunch program. And anywhere on the school campus, anytime during the school day. Let's define what we are talking about. So competitive foods are all food and beverages sold to students and consumed during the day. School campus is all areas of the property that students have access to. And then the school day is the period from midnight to 30 minutes after the official end of the school day. So like if you're having, activities after school that would not be defined as being part of that food rule itself. Okay. The new rule applies to all of the schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program in Douglas County, elementary, middle school, high school. Okay. All the a la carte offerings in the cafeteria, which is nutrition services, that's the things that we serve outside of the reimbursable meal. So discussion that we had tonight is that one of the kids' favorite in the elementaries is the new no-fat frozen yogurt that we have. They love that. It's very healthy, but it would be considered something that would have to be regulated. Food in the school stores, snack bars, vending machines, club sales, and fundraisers. We'll come back to club sales and fundraisers because fundraisers briefly is something that is of concern. So the summary of the Smart Snack Standards, I'm just going to walk you through this, is it must be a whole grain rich product, or it has the first ingredient in the ingredient list of fruit, vegetable, dairy, or protein, or be a combination food with at least 1/4 cup fruit or at least 1/4 cup vegetable, or contain 10% of the daily value of one nutrients of public health concern, being calcium, potassium, vitamin D, or fiber. We did an exhaustive search in all the different things that we sold starting back in January when these regulations first came out. And about 65% of the things that we sold that were pre-packaged don't make it. Things like Lay's potato chip, those kinds of things. Even light Lay's potato chips wouldn't make it and stuff. So we were concerned about that. That kind of set the red bell for us going off. Now, remember I talked about back in 2007. So we had already started to decrease the fat, the saturated fat, the trans fat, the sugar, and that kind of thing. The Smart Snacks now incorporate those things in these competitive foods and stuff. In addition to that, they also look at the sodium level. I'll show you a slide for that. And also the calorie. You saw the kids that are complaining that they don't have enough calories. When we feed kids like a piece of pizza, it can only be 350 calories. That makes it very problematic because we have a lot of foods. So now what I want to do is I want to talk you, and with the sodium level regulation. Now the top part of that is we have to average that over a week's time. It's kind of a busy slide, but so 1,230 milligrams of sodium daily over a week's time. So one day I can do more sodium, and another day I can really cut back on the sodium. So we have to average that. So it's a lot more technical. But the Smart Snacks literally saying is that 480 milligrams of sodium is all they'll allow. And so some of the things that we're selling really do come under scrutiny with these new regulations. So we're concerned about that. Now, the Nutrition Services Fund, I want to point this out to you in the sense that what I did was I went and looked at, okay, let's look at our stream of revenue here. We're vulnerable now. That's the way I felt about it. We receive from federal reimbursement, commodity contributions, state matching, from the child nutrition programs and stuff, about $3 million a year from those sources, okay? But when you look at that, $10.8 to $11.8 million comes from local revenue. So we're generating most of the revenue from either a la carte sales or from local sales itself. Okay? And but I drilled down on this, and one of the things that I found, and I think this is really important to understand, is that, well, in the high schools, 95% of what we sell to those students is a la carte sales. And only 5% of what we get as far as a revenue stream is coming back as federal reimbursement, which caused me great concern. Let me give you an example. At Thunder Ridge High School, we probably only have about 7 to 13 kids eating a reimbursable or a National School Lunch Program meal a day. We serve a lot of food there for the 2,200 kids that are at Thunder Ridge, but we don't serve a lot of reimbursable meals, okay? So let me walk you through. I chose 3 foods that the kids absolutely love. First one being a burrito, okay? This is a Chipotle burrito, I will say that. So I took the calories for the commercial. You can see it's a little over 1,000. Has about 46 grams of fat, and it's 2,200 milligrams of sodium. Now, Chef Jason, our executive chef, and the Pro Start program at Thunder Ridge sat down together and created what we called Chipotle-like burrito. But we kept in mind these nutrition standards, and they did a really remarkable job. So you can see we call it the Chef Doug Burrito. These kids are out actually marketing it in the high schools, and our high school kids really love it too. We were able to almost, cut the calories considerably back. It's less grams of fat, more percent because the calories are less, but the sodium we cut in half. I thought that was pretty good. We got some work to do there. But a burrito's a burrito, and the kids absolutely love it. That is a really popular one. But when you look down here in your bottom left, the requirements that USDA has now put based on the Smart Snacks, that we don't even come close. You'd have a little teeny burrito that you'd have to feed them, and that wouldn't be too good. We also developed, Chef Jason and the Pro Start kids are developing what they call a burger bar. So I took McDonald's Big Mac, 550 calories, 29 grams of fat, 970 milligrams of sodium. And then the burger bar that we've gotten is down to 315 calories. We're using a very lean ground beef, very, very clean label, that kind of thing, no soy or anything like that in it. And we were able to get the sodium down pretty well. But we still don't really meet the criteria in its entirety and stuff, so there's a concern here. Now the last one I want to show you has great impact, because I've shown you some individual things, but I'm going to blow this up and let you see the magnitude of what happens here. This is Subway. We own 9 franchises in our district, in our 9 high schools, in a very successful program. This Chicken Bacon Ranch is one of the most popular 6-inch Subways that the kids like. I went and I pulled the data in myself, and yep, they'd like that very much. 570 calories. It's very lean meat and that kind of thing. 28 grams of fat, 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And the requirements still, again, would not meet that. So when you extrapolate that we do about $1 million a year in a la carte as far as Subway is concerned. We could no way afford to lose $1 million in sales. And so we would literally, though, have to give up our Subway franchises. So here I'm standing with concern again, and it just deepens. This whole thing is. The whole pizza program that we had you test today. The kids really love the pizza, but that's about $1 million a year worth of pizza, and it's still not really meeting the criteria. And then we have a miscellaneous a la carte things, but that again is about $1 million. So we potentially could lose about $3 million. Would kids come back and eat the National School Lunch Program? I don't know. Our kids have cars, they have open campuses, they have money, and my prediction would be we would really be in a world of hurt there. So, all right, so we talked about fundraisers, and I'm going to really kind of briefly go this because of time. But the competitive foods and fundraisers and stuff are still applicable. All the nutrition standards we've been talking about apply to any fundraisers. Items that are sold in behalf of the thing. Most of that kind of thing happens in the high schools. Clubs do fundraisers. They go and sell food and those kind of things, okay? What I want to show you, though, is that they have to now start keeping records, which include things like receipts, nutrition labels, and product specifications. They're not accustomed to that. I am accustomed to that. That's a lot of work, and I think parents are going to be outraged by the whole thing, and students, quite frankly. The monitoring and compliance, the state is the agency that monitors this program, this USDA program. We know that we're up for an audit next year, so we can guarantee that they'll be coming in and doing that audit for us. One of the things that we did find out is that if we do get violations or find audit findings, that they will provide technical assistance and corrective action will be required. They don't say anything about, finding us money or anything like that. That was kind of a relief for me to hear that. And I asked the question 3 times and stuff. So we're kind of at a fork in the road is the way I look at that. We have a decision to make. And so I want to present to you 2 options. One is that we stay on the National School Lunch Program and work through the issues. The high schools adjust, the DECA programs, the school stores, the fundraising programs have to adjust to these new regulations, both from a nutritional standpoint and a monitoring standpoint. And then nutrition services, we have to really monitor what's going on in the high schools, because if we don't have business, we're going to have to start laying people up. I don't want to create a doomsday, but that option is very bleak in my mind. The second option would be to go off the National School Lunch Program in our high schools. Then the Hungry, Healthy, Free Kids Act is not applicable to the high schools where we don't have the National School Lunch Program. We will continue to monitor, continue to provide the nutrition standards. I think I've proven myself as far as being dedicated to making sure that we have healthy things for our kids, healthy food in that. We will not throw out the baby with the bathwater and start just feeding them junk food again. We want to continue to do that because they do appreciate that. The Subways and the smoothies, the fresh fruit smoothies and stuff that we build, the kids like those, and we want to continue to do that for them and provide those needs. The high school programs such as DECA, vending in school stores, are minimally impacted if we go off the National School Lunch. And we better meet the tastes of the high school students. And then we promote a sustainable nutrition service program in all of our K-12 programs. And we fight to break even. You've seen that. I think you watch us in that. And it's a struggle. I stay up late at night trying to figure out how we can find a way to cut this expense or build this revenue and stuff. But we have a fighting chance when we don't have to deal with this. So our recommendation is to suspend the participation of the National School Lunch Program at our 9 high schools. Continue to provide a healthy school lunch at our high schools using our balanced approach, making sure that kids enjoy eating what we provide for them, and then monitoring and evaluating the new USDA standards against student acceptability at the elementary and middle schools. That is not off my radar. I want you to understand that. But I do believe we have a good chance, and we've made some good inroads there, and that our students are now starting to accept that we don't have this plate waste thing, and our kids are actually eating. We don't have the greatest participation rates in the world, and when you look at other districts and stuff. A lot of kids do bring their own sack lunches, but those kids that do eat with us are healthy eaters, and we appreciate that. So there's always risks whenever you make decisions in that, and so I've tried to identify what those risks are. The public perception of a non-healthy lunch going off the National School Lunch Program. I think we've proven ourselves as good communicators, and we work well with our kids and our parents in being able to make sure that they understand that we're committed to healthy lunches for our high schools. The subsidization of the free and reduced students. There still are going to be kids that qualify for free and reduced in the high school. We are committed to making sure that they have an adequate lunch every day. And that we estimate that to be about $200,000. But we also believe that we can roll that into our high school programs. The at-risk funding that we get from the state is about $4 million, and the Title I funding from federal funds is $1 million. What we have to do is we have to be very good with our economic data surveys. We've studied this. We've got plans in place. We will not let the district down in those funds, and that we're committed to that thing. But that is, I do have to put that up as a risk. But we've studied the problem, and we have a plan in place to make sure that we can maintain the free and reduced levels. So our request is that you approve this recommendation. So I just ask now if you have any questions.
And that recommendation being option 2.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Wow, there is a whole menu of things wrong with this program. First of which, I don't want to be the district that has the most nutritious waste baskets in the state. And I mean, I'm only half joking about that. And like you said, we've done a lot of work to give healthy choices to these kids, and you are getting less waste. And I think that's a strong argument for something that's working.
Right.
Yes, at the high school levels, kids have the option of leaving campus and using other alternatives. What about the kids that bring lunch? Is the next step to start inspecting their bag lunches to determine if they meet some particular person's nutrition agenda and monitor and start parenting instead of our parents parenting? I mean, that's the crux of this issue. Yes, healthy nutrition should be a high goal for, it fits well with education. And I like your approach of educating the kids on what healthy choices are, especially when they're young and they can develop the habits and the choices that they'll carry forward. But boy, the smacks of nanny state interference come in and start monitoring. I mean, are you kids going to be able to go home for lunch? And when they do, because it's during the school day, are they going to come and monitor your kitchen to determine whether the choices you're putting on their table are appropriate? The one-size-fits-all approach, high school kids. I had a petite daughter. Her caloric needs are much different than an offensive lineman on the football team. And yet they have the same one-size-fits-all requirements. I mean, that nutrition for an athlete, 6'5", 225-pound, healthy 225-pound young man wouldn't carry him the whole day.
Totally agree.
And so it's ludicrous just on its face that they've gone to a simplified one-size-fits-all. Then when you just get into the point of, starting to mandate and taking away the role of parents to make those choices for the kids, and for the parents first and foremost, and then us to supplement that with education on how to make good choices and have the good ones. I agree with you. We don't have to have Little Debbie's and Hostess snacks like I did in junior high, sitting there in the cafeteria. But I've tried your smoothies. I've gone to the schools and had Subway, and they do have some great choices available. Right. And so I know, and what I'm seeing here is that at the high school level, it's almost a no-brainer in terms of money, because we're going to comply would there's some risks, but there would be some greater revenue losses just by complying.
Right.
And let alone the principal, but there'd be that. Now, when you get down to the middle and elementary levels, I mean, at the middle school, and I don't know if it continues, I know someday it was Chick-fil-A Day, they would have patties, and I don't know if that's continued or not, but what about those schools that don't have a Subway franchise type of element in the decision? Why I know the first step, that it's an easy decision at the high school level, but why not look even further at the middle and elementaries to say, I mean, if these kids are going to eat, I mean, goodness sakes, if they have to eat pizza A that we tried downstairs,
they won't.
I will buy pizzas and bring them to school.
Yeah, there you go.
It's just
like I told you, it's on my radar. The high school, the middle schools and the elementary, I'm not ignoring that. It's on my radar. I think it's still a concern. We have to very carefully monitor that. And my suggestion is that we come back in January, and because I think what I do every month is I look and see what are our participation rate. Last year, when we came out of the gate at the beginning of last year's school, we were down 12% in the elementaries. I freaked out. But we gained it back. We did some very innovative things. We gained it back, and we were able to increase our participation year-end by about 5%. So that was a good thing. But boy, it sure caused some angst moments for me and that kind of thing. But we watch that very closely. And if we see this starting to erode, then yes, we need to take action.
Okay.
But I want you to understand that I'm a good administrator from that perspective, and I'm not going to let us just let that go down the road and ignore that. Because just like I watched with the high schools, and I'm taking action now, I believe that we can make a difference in the elementary. And I do believe that we need to fight obesity. I do believe we need to feed healthy meals. But I believe in the balanced approach. And as an administrator, that is my philosophy, and it's very well supported by Bonnie and those that are surrounding, that lead me. And I feel comforted in the fact that that balanced approach is the way to do that.
Thank you. Director Richardson.
Go ahead.
Oh, Director Benevento.
Is the current state of our school lunch and breakfast programs unhealthy, in your opinion?
I think sometimes you have to ask who, you have to ask that, depends on who you're asking that question to. As I look at it from a nutritional standpoint, we would say they're healthy, okay? But it's like some of the discussions tonight. At a district level, that we say that's healthy, but sometimes down, it doesn't always translate down to the elementary. But we spend a great deal of monitoring and administration and management to make sure that what we say at the district level is happening at the very lowest levels. And so yes, I think they are healthy. One of the examples, I talked about the fresh fruits and vegetables. We've done such a great job that Whole Foods gave us over $250,000 to buy these Harvest Bars, where we have them in every school that we serve a school lunch, including our charter schools. That's a great opportunity to teach kids to eat healthy and give them what they like.
Well, because it strikes me that balance is what's important. I mean,
right.
So, you know, you're right about chicken nuggets. I mean, there are chicken nuggets and there are chicken nuggets, and we go through this with our kids. I mean, they want what, you know, we have a 6- and 9-year-old, they want what 6- and 9-year-olds want. But it's in terms of, you know, balancing that out, and you know, they get a treat. They get to go to McDonald's on occasion, but it's rarely. And it seems to me that what's being lost in what's happening at the federal level and almost the cram down approach that's being taken is that sense of balance, that sense of responsibility that people like you have, a nutritionist. Because I want to talk to you as a nutritionist, not necessarily as an administrator, the sense of balance that you have, that you understand kids need. That's lost with this approach. It is. I was hard pressed to disagree with their with the sort of nutritional advice that's coming from Washington, D.C. What I disagree with is the one size fits all. We're just going to tell you what's best, and you're going to go out and do it, irrespective of whether you're doing it at a fundraiser or, you know, or anything else. This is what you must do and march forward. And I just think that's unhealthy. I mean, that approach isn't what's best, and it sort of eliminates I think the common sense at the local level that that they don't have in Washington, D.C. So thank you. I support. As
an individual, I want to just let you know that I do write my congressman and let him know how I feel about this.
Well, I think they agree.
We all have that good responsibility to do that. To let him know how we feel.
I mean, look, look, USDA. I was telling folks earlier, they're a group that back in '91, at one point, wanted to define milk as something, or Congress wanted to define milk as something that wasn't, milk didn't come out of a cow until it was enriched. I mean, so USDA's got its own issues that it needs to deal with, that probably this needs to fall down the list, and they should leave it to experts like you to make the determination.
But in principle of feeding healthy kids, I do agree with that. And I think that, but again, the balanced approach is
that's taught, and you know, there's a lot of things that happen. It happens at home as well. And
we teach correct principles and let govern for themselves.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
Dr. Richardson?
Comments?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of observations. No one disagrees that we have a nutrition crisis in this country, I think.
Absolutely.
It's a major driver of healthcare costs. The rates of childhood obesity are reaching epidemic levels, diabetes, all sorts of diseases that are correlated with poor nutrition choices and poor exercise habits and the like. And no one disagrees that there's a very close correlation between nutrition and academic achievement. We know that the mind cognitively functions better when the body is well nourished and healthy. So, and from there we sort of part company with our friends at the USDA in Washington, who think that they have the answers 1,700 miles away for individuals here in Douglas County. They just don't have, they're not that good. They're just not that good at decision making. They don't have access to the localized data. They can't possibly make the nuanced distinctions between school districts that are required in this area to be successful on the two principles I just talked about. So, you know, we don't typically like central planners here in Douglas County, and that's because we don't think they're particularly good at decision making, and that there is a role for districts and parents and students and school-based leaders to strike those balances and meet those unique needs on an individual basis that are, I think, required for success. We also champion in this district education in this area. I mean, helping our kids understand the science of nutrition and the impact of food on their bodies, different food choices on their bodies is critically important. So we want them to be equipped to make sound choices. But at the end of the day, the most, as I'm fond of saying, the location for the most accurate decision making about these sorts of matters, I believe, is at the edges of our district, least in Washington, not in Denver, and maybe not even in this room. So that's true of a lot of subject matters that we contend with, and I think it's true of this one. So once again, the government they're from the government and they're here to help. And I think this board's, my reaction at least, I think other board members have the same reaction, is no thanks. So I'm inclined to accept your recommendation and proceed along the lines you've suggested.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Director Reynolds?
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
With the students that would be impacted by this, will they still go through the process of applying for free and reduced lunch so that we know? How will those parents be informed, especially the high school kids, if they hear that, oh, well, we're no longer participating, so that those parents understand that their children will still have access to meals at school?
I've got 3 of the sweetest ladies just waiting for me to come back tomorrow morning and say it's time to send letters to all parents that were on free and reduced last year in the high schools to tell them the process by which their kids can get on. We have to fill out economic data surveys. That's a law that we have to deal with, and that we're prepared to communicate very effectively with them and to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks. We are working with the Department of Human Services to directly certify these kids that actually qualify through other means, food stamps, WIC, those kinds of things, families and stuff of that nature. And we're prepared to just go to the ends of the earth to make sure that we don't let anybody slip through the cracks. And they're very dedicated to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for a very thorough
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.